Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you. So now, item number 12, SB 387.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And I am pleased to present the annual bar bill dues measure. I don't know if I'm pleased to present, but it is the responsibility that I have as the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Next year it will be your delightful task. This bill will permit the State Bar to charge membership dues for 2016 up to the current amount, which is $390 a year for active members. That amount, as I mentioned, is identical to last year. There will be no net increase for members. And as outlined in the analysis, the state auditor released its biennial performance audit of the bar in June. And that audit raised a number of questions about its operations, including the functioning of its discipline system. And again, the responsibility of the bar, as we know, is to protect the public, and one of the ways that we protect the public is to make sure that people are not holding themselves to the practice of law who should not be. And for me personally, I think this is a critically important component of the bar's activities. I had the good fortune or misfortune of practicing law for over 22 years. And so that's why your hair is receding and mine is gray. Not you, Mr. Chair, but I'm talking about Mr. Mindshine. At any rate, and others here, and Mr. Wagner, who continues the joy of practicing law. But this is a critically important issue, and the concerns that were expressed in the State Bar review and the audit were of great concern. And in the bill, we have, as a result, implemented many of the recommendations of the state auditor, including better defining what the backlog of discipline cases includes. It requires the bar to complete a workforce plan for its discipline system, and requires the bar to develop a reasonable spending plan based on its necessary operations. And further, in response to concerns about the bar's transparency and its accountability, this bill requires an in-depth financial audit of the bar, including a review of the bar's internal controls and relevant practices. I would also like to reassure members that we have met, the Assembly Chair and I have met with the Chief Justice to discuss the issues with the bar. And recognizing that the bar is actually an administrative arm of the court and is under the direct authorization and supervision of the state Supreme Court itself. We have a responsibility, but we do not essentially have control of the State Bar given its configuration. We have met, we have committed to continuing to work together to improve the functioning of the State Bar, and based upon the audit, the circumstances surrounding the current configuration of the bar, and the fact that there still are vacancies of public members, which we hope will be filled as soon as possible, something that has been outstanding for some time and over which none of us has control, but that we really believe that this measure will tighten up the bar, will hold it more accountable, will address the way it has conducted itself, and again do so without adding any additional charges to the members of the bar. And with that, I have Craig Holden, President of the State Bar of California, to testify in support of the bill.
Senator, you described some of the amendments that we had been talking about. Are you taking the amendments
yes.
as listed as? Thank you.
They are. They will be taken as authors' amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Holden.
Thank you. Thank you, Senator, and thank you, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Craig Holden, and I'm President of the State Bar of California. I'm here before you today to ask for your support of our annual dues bill. And it's at the same level that it's been at last year and for years prior. As you know, the bar recently underwent an audit concerning its discipline system and fiscal controls. And I want to assure this body that the board and the bar have not only fully accepted those amendments, but we're actively working to implement them. In fact, since last year when I took my term in September, we actively undertook efforts to reform the organization, and in November, we terminated our CEO and we moved forward with additional reforms. And some of those reforms include fiscal controls over the ability to transfer funds for purposes that have been earmarked, the quality control measures that we put in within our discipline system, and a host of other measures that have been identified by our efforts working with Assemblyman Stone as well as Senator Jackson. And I've got faith in the board and in this organization that it will implement the auditor's recommendations, and we're actively pursuing that. And so I thank you for your support, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other witnesses in support? Anyone in support? Thank you. Any opposition?
Mr. Chairman, members, Ed Howard, Senior Counsel with the Center for Public Interest Law at the University of San Diego School of Law. We rise in respectful but deeply passionate opposition to this bill as it currently reads. And as painstakingly documented not just by the auditor, but by a truly brilliant and comprehensive staff analysis, the State Bar has first repeatedly broken the law. It has not convened pursuant to Business and Professions Code 6001.2, a governance in the public interest task force that is required to ensure that the Bar's mission is aligned with public protection. And it has failed because of that to make the report and suggestions as to how to protect the public that was due in May of last year. It has broken the law by failing to respond to lawful requests from the news media pursuant to Business and Professions Code 6001.4 for basic information about the classification and salary of its employees. It has broken the law by not informing this legislature of its decision to buy an office building as is required by law, and it has broken the law by failing persistently to conform its practices to prevent decisions from being made in secret in prohibition of the Bagley-Keene Act. It has likewise, in second, broken faith with this legislature by underreporting case processing times to this legislature by 70%. It falsely told this legislature that a building that would cost eventually $76 million instead cost only $26, a statement that was misleading by 2/3. And it has broken faith respectfully with this legislature by, for years, insisting it had insufficient funds to increase assistance to the needy and to the poor, when it in fact was diverting money from other sources in lieu of providing such assistance to the needy and the poor. Third, it has broken its fiduciary duties to members like me by failing, according to the audit, to perform a cost-benefit analysis prior to spending $76 million of my dues money. And finally, and most importantly, it has broken its fundamental promise to members of the public. I quote from the audit. In other words, to reduce its backlog, the State Bar has allowed some attorneys who it might otherwise have disciplined more severely or even disbarred to continue to practice law at significant risk to the public. Madam Chair, Mr. Chairman, members, in conclusion, what can we say about a government agency that has a record of breaking the law, that spends millions of attorneys' dues without basic analysis, that has not provided accurate information to the legislature, that prioritizes reducing its administrative backlog over protecting the public by getting bad attorneys off the street, and diverts money away from enforcement and aiding the poor and needy to buy an office building for its own use? I have the highest possible esteem for the author of this bill. This bill does not deserve to leave this committee without significant amendments changing the basic underlying governance structure of the bar. The current governance structure of the bar deserves respectfully to be fired and reformed.
I do need you to wrap up.
Thank you very much. If we ask for a no vote on this bill unless it is amended to make basic accountability governance changes to the structure of the State Bar as detailed in our letter. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members.
Any other opposition? Seeing none, I'm going to bring it back to the committee. Senator Jackson, I want to thank you for working with us, and Mr. Holden as well. I think over this last year we've had improved communications between the Senate Judiciary Committee, Assembly Judiciary Committee. We met recently with the Chief Justice on the audit, on the issues. And what I do hope that this bar bill does at this point is give us a framework for moving forward for exactly the issues that were raised in the audit, which is why it does call for a comprehensive audit of the bar and giving us better basis next year as we look at the bar bill to understand what the issues and challenges truly are with the governance. And I appreciate the work of Mr. Holden over this last year, although I know you will be leaving your term this fall, and I hope that your subsequent presidents will take as seriously as you have the need to be responsive to the legislature, to members of the bar, and to the general public, which is what the bar's charged with, is ensuring protection and safety of the general public. The issues that have been raised are serious with respect to the bar, and I know that the bar is going through some internal governance conversations, and as we've discussed, those need to be talked about and need to be explained so that attorneys and the public understand what they are. And for us to take that in-depth look at the bar, really be able to try and address from our perspective and given our oversight responsibilities, what is happening or what needs to be done at the bar. I do think we need the audit that is a part of this bill, and we worked pretty hard coming to agreement around that and setting the stage for being able to move forward. So I do think that this is an appropriate step for us at this time, though with the caution that it is our responsibility in the legislature to provide oversight on the administrative and judicial branches of our government. This is certainly a part of the process, as well as authorizing the bar to be able to collect fees. Any questions, comments? Mr. Wagner.
Yeah, just real briefly, I don't think that the second House this late in the process is the place to have the whole thing grind to a halt to address the concerns that we heard here today, in part because it's very clear to me in my conversations with President Holden and with the conversations we've had here that the bar has gotten the message and is making changes. Will they be made fast enough and quickly enough to satisfy us? I don't know, and maybe we'll take a look, somewhere down the road at that. But at this point, the only realistic thing, and indeed the right thing to do so that the bar can continue its important mission, is to move this forward as is, and so I will move the bill.
Thank you. That motion is due pass as amended. We do have a motion and a second. Mr. Chu.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a bill in which I think I share the perspective of our vice chair. I've been an active member of the bar for almost 20 years, and it has been my perspective for most of that time that this bar fee is way too high. I have never understood the value that the over 200,000 attorneys in the state of California have received for this, and certainly the committee analysis, which lays out a description of an outgoing executive director who refers to egregious fiscal improprieties, certainly as one of the opposition laid out, a state auditor who's laid out, described significant questionable financial decisions, again, some of which are egregious, raises serious issues. And I have contemplated not voting for this bill, but really out of respect for the chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee and her work, and I know my guess is this is probably not a bill at the very top of your personal preferences, but something that you are required to bring to us. And out of respect to, I knew a new president as of 6-8 months ago who is working hard to move this forward. I'm willing to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, but I want to just put folks on notice that next year I may feel differently about this, and I very much look forward to hearing a report from the State Bar and the progress that they have made. So really my comment is to say I will support this, but from my perspective, this is something we absolutely have to address, really not just yesterday, but probably years ago, and I look forward to that conversation.
Thank you. Mr. Bainshine.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I, too, would almost verbatim echo the comments of my colleague from San Francisco. I have a tremendous amount of respect for this author. I'm encouraged very much by what the president has been saying, and certainly, obviously, understands, I think, the depth of this. And I, too, as somebody who's paid these dues for a lot of years and who's had some level of interaction with the State Bar, has not been impressed with it as an organization. I would also have no problem voting no on this today. I'm not going to, because I do think the message is out there from the testimony that we've heard, and certainly to support this author, too, which I would like to do. But I think this is an area, and you're hearing it on a bipartisan level across this committee, that this is something, and particularly, I guess, from the lawyers who've been paying it, that this is, there needs to be substantial changes here, because, again, in my perspective, the bar has not typically done a good job of protecting the public from lawyers who should not be practicing law, who should be disbarred. Not just sanctioned, but disbarred. So I will support it today, but I'd love to see the presentation next year be substantially more encouraging as to what sort of changes we see in this organization.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, may I, given the rather significant allegations, breaking the law, breaking faith, I would like to ask your permission to allow Mr. Holden to at least respond briefly to some of those allegations, if that would be, right now they're sort of left out in the wind, and while I don't think anybody disagrees with the concerns expressed, I think that the nature of those allegations, such as they are, really do, I think, for the edification of the members here who have indicated their willingness to vote for this, perhaps a little perspective might be helpful, if you would.
Sure, I'll allow that.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let me begin by saying that I am a firm believer in the fact that the organization needs improvement, and we're here to improve it, and that's what we've been doing. With respect to some of the references, such as 6001.4 in the Public Records Act, for example, I sent out for public comment a wholly revised Public Records Act. That'll come back before the board in July. And so we look forward to embracing that work that will come back. With respect to the office that was purchased in Los Angeles, as the auditor noted, the prior CEO left the board in the dark, and we prevented that same transaction from happening in San Francisco. And I think that's a transaction that, by and large, serves the needs of the organization for the short term, and we're looking at our ability to expand and utilize it and make sure that the real estate can be used more effectively. With respect to the bar having insufficient funds for its organization versus having excess funds, some of the funds that the auditor identified as excess funds are funds that are allocated by members for specific purposes, such as dues in connection with their bankruptcy section, their intellectual property section, their litigation section. They're not excess funds in that traditional sense. And so we've worked closely with the auditor to assure her that those are not excess funds, but will report more effectively on that. The annual dues report to this organization can and should be better. We want it to be more comprehensive. I assure you that it will be. We've worked both with Senator Jackson and Assemblyman Stone, who have given us both great feedback, and I assure you, with their leadership and their involvement with the Chief Justice, we will get a better product out to you next year. With respect to some lawyers practicing that are bad actors that may not should not probably still be in the system, I think we have seen a number of quality reform measures take place in 2011 when the Supreme Court sent back 27 cases. that was a message to the then Chief Trial Counsel to retool the approach that was being used with those cases. Those cases were looked at again, and since that time there was a structural reorganization in 2012. So a lot of the information that comes out of the audit is fairly dated. It goes back all the way to 2009, and a lot of those issues were corrected in 2012 and moving forward. And so we're confident that with the continued vigilance in looking at these reforms, embracing them, we've accepted them all, and I've got a government interest task force that will look at these in addition to other recommendations, including the current structure of the board and whether it should be more public members appointed or elected members. So I just wanted to assure you that as a volunteer who spends my time as a chair of a national litigation department, I find the public service rewarding, but I also understand the issues that have been raised in this tumultuous time, and want to assure you that this board as constituted is fully committed to the implementation of the auditor's recommendations, and we've been started on those for more than 6 months now. So I'm proud of the board and the work that they've done.
Other questions or comments? And without prejudicing our effort next year, because the bar dues bill does come through this committee next year, so members will have the opportunity to craft that, and I look forward to your participation, taking into account the efforts that the bar has done this year and reported to us, conversations with the Chief Justice, working with the Senate Judiciary Committee, but specifically getting the results of the audit that will be coming out next spring and give us much better insight. I think that is what will be forming the bill as it moves forward out of this committee next year. So, Senator, you may close.
Yes, appreciate the comments, share most of the perspective, having practiced law for 22 years and paid my dues for all those years. Part of what makes this such an interesting challenge is that this is not like most government agencies, a government agency. It is under the direct auspices of the Supreme Court of the state of California. We do have a role. I will say that working with this Chief Justice has been, I think, a very hopeful opportunity. She is a very collaborative person. I think we're starting to see that as she has taken over the bar. I have utmost confidence that we will be able to continue that collaboration going forward, and I appreciate Assembly Member Chair Stone's efforts on this, and I look forward to continuing to work with him and with all of you to improve the work that's done by the State Bar. With that, I would ask for your aye vote.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Stone?
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wagner?
Aye.
Wagner, aye. Alejo? Chow? Aye. Chow, aye. Chu? Chu, aye. Gallagher? Aye. Gallagher, aye. Garcia? Weber? Aye. Weber, aye. Mainshine? Aye. Mainshine, aye. Thurmond?
That bill is out.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
Thank you. So that brings us to item number 7, SB 249, Mr. Hueso. Then you have 2 other bills, items number 9 and 10. So if we could start with SB 249, which is our number 7.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 249 is, let's see here if I can, 249 is our enhanced driver's license bill. First of all, I'd like to state that we are taking the committee amendment. It's basically a word change, a clarifying word change, and we will accept that. SB 249 authorizes the Department of Motor Vehicles to enter into an MOU with the federal government for the purposes of issuing an enhanced driver's license. The enhanced driver's license, also the acronym EDL, will be enhanced in process, technology, and security to denote both identity and citizenship at sea and land ports of entry. An EDL is an RFID chip-enabled travel document that allows travelers to waive their EDL at a card reader before approaching the customs officer. This eliminates the time it takes to manually input information into the system, making processing times up to from 30 to 60% faster depending on the port of entry. Each year, 45 million passenger vehicles and 15 million pedestrians cross the border into California through 6 land ports of entry. California ports of entry are a gateway for commerce as employees cross the border to go to work, consumers cross to shop, and business people cross to attend meetings and manage their businesses co-located on both sides of the border. Strong security measures implemented after 9/11 have increased border wait times substantially. This has had a chilling effect on the number of people crossing at the border, and thus has had a negative effect on economic growth in the state of California. California has the busiest border crossing in the world, and thereby is losing out on lots of economic opportunities there. This delay creates an economic loss for California of the $3.9 billion magnitude, 3 million potential working hours, and 43,000 jobs. There is an urgent economic need to responsibly expedite the movement of people across the border into California. Giving Californians added options to access RFID-enabled documents will decrease border wait times. There are some RFID-enabled documents that currently are available, like a passport card. These are much more expensive, and we believe that they will be more efficient, and there will be more subscription to RFID-enabled documents to cross the border if they're allowed to access them at a DMV office when people renew their driver's license. This is an optional program, so Californians that want to get an RFID-enabled California driver's license can apply. If they so choose, they can choose a non-RFID chip driver's license or this one that will allow them to cross the border. Through that process, they do have to establish citizenship in the application process. This program is only accessible to citizens because only citizens can cross at the border. If you have a visa, there's a different document for that, and if you have what they call a green card or a resident alien card, that has already an RFID chip. So this would kind of finish the piece of the puzzle that's currently left out of that process, whereby the more people have access to RFID-enabled documents when crossing the border, that will substantially reduce border wait times for all people involved. I've been working on different initiatives to help reduce border wait times. This is probably one of the areas where we can stimulate the largest amount of economic growth in our state. Reducing border wait times has had that much of an economic impact. It's a quality of life measure that allows travelers to travel more efficiently within our region. It also helps improve air quality, that you have less cars idling at the border. You have less gridlock on our highways. This is going to be a program that fixes lots of problems. So I respectfully ask for your support for this important measure. We've been working on this bill for 3 years, and we've been working with supporters and the opponents on how to draft a bill that meets everybody's needs but still accomplishes what we're trying to accomplish, and that's to reduce border wait times and to make life more enjoyable for travelers in and around our state. So thank you for your attention, and we'll hear from some supporters.
Thank you. First witness, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Moira Top here on behalf of San Diego Mayor Kevin Faulconer and the entire City Council of San Diego. We are in strong support of the measure. Average wait times in San Diego to get across the border is about 70 minutes. During peak hours, it can exceed 3 hours. You can imagine what kind of impact that has on truck traffic and ports and goods movement throughout the region and throughout the state, in fact. This is a program that's endorsed by the federal government. It's been tested and been quite successful in other states. We think it's long overdue for California. As the Senator mentioned, we have one of the busiest, if not the busiest, port of entry in the country. We strongly support the bill and ask for your aye vote today.
Thank you. Next witness.
Good afternoon, or good morning. Kirk Blackburn on behalf of the San Diego Association of Governments, SANDAG, in support. SB 249 will help ensure SANDAG's efforts to address border transportation infrastructure needs are met by enabling a more efficient border crossing system. Reducing wait times while maintaining the necessary security measures is critical to supporting the efficient movement of goods and people across our border. Thank you, and urge your aye vote.
Thank you. Next witness.
Mr. Chairman and members, Tony Gonzalez representing the San Diego Regional Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank Senator Hueso for sticking with this issue for the last couple of years. You've heard all the arguments. I will just simply say that this is a great bill for the regional business community, but also the statewide business community. And for that reason, we ask your aye vote.
Thank you. Anyone else in support? Opposition?
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members. Kevin Baker for the American Civil Liberties Union. We are also in support of reducing border wait times. Anything we can do to accommodate that would be probably helpful. Unfortunately, I think it's the federal government that's largely responsible for that, and there's very little we can do. Nevertheless, we have a couple outstanding concerns. We're working with the author and hope to be in a position to remove our opposition regarding some of the privacy issues as the bill moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle Kando-Kaiser on behalf of the Privacy Rights Clearinghouse and the Electronic Frontier Foundation. We echo the sentiments of our colleagues at the ACLU, and we remain in opposition.
Thank you. Anyone else in opposition? Seeing none. And Senator Hueso, I understand that you're taking some of the amendments that are here, but I know that there are other amendments that you'll be taking as the bill moves towards appropriations.
The amendments that I'm adding to the bill are Amendment number 1, the Department shall provide a protective shield at the time the document is issued to the individual. Of course, it's extremely important that the protective shield be provided, and I've been going through every committee for the last 3 years demonstrating the shield, and the shield is basically on this is a global entry card, and the shield is a copper sheath that will prevent the card from radiating or anybody picking up that signal. Even if they do pick it up, of course, it's protected information that can't be. It'll be a number that people will get. They really won't have any useful information. It's not useful for them. It doesn't have any personal information on that number. Nonetheless, this will prevent that from radiating, and this can be in your possession at all times without the fear that the signal will be picked up. That's Amendment number 1. We just wanted to clarify that. I think it was already implied in the bill but we wanted to make it extra clear. Amendment 2 also is a clarifying document. Of course, this is a California driver's license. People will apply for it knowing that they will have a California driver's license and an enhanced driver's license that will help as an identifier crossing borders. But we wanted to make it perfectly clear. We worked with the opposition to state that all laws related to the privacy or security of a driver's license, instruction permit, provisional license, or identification card, or similar document, or regulating the use, access, or sharing of information shall apply to enhanced driver's license, instruction permits, provisional driver's licenses, and identification cards. And that basically says all the rights and privileges that one has in obtaining a California driver's license or an ID is also applied to enhanced driver's license, just to make it clear that it is what it is. And those are the amendments that we're taking. And just to simply clarify further, also, we want to stress that security and protecting people's property is probably one of the most important aspects of this program, and we want to encourage DMV when they do employ the program. And we've been talking to DMV, and they intend to use all the programs and practices that protect people's information. If you currently go to DMV and now apply for information for a driver's license, we're talking about the same information is on this card than is on a regular, and they're going to take the same precautions to protect people's privacy and their personal information on this program as well as a regular driver's license. We want to make sure that's clear as well.
Right, but as the bill is moving forward, and you said you're continuing to work with the opposition on the encryption issue and then the law enforcement access issue.
Yeah, we're working with them. We want to make sure we have the right language. We don't want to specifically put one specific protective policy and statute that will remain in statute, that will have to change when technology improves. We know people use different means of stealing people's identities, and we in public service understand that it's important to employ the latest technologies. And if there's a specific encryption process, we don't want to put that specifically in statute, because we want to give the DMV the flexibility to protect people's privacy and to protect their documents. So that's also very important to us, that this be a fluid process, that they employ the latest technology available at the time to ensure people's privacy.
Well, and this is another example of the technological capability sort of taking steps, but without really being a complete solution. The Faraday cage is kind of a clumsy protection for it, but ultimately, once we deal with what is appropriate authentication, the data that's on that card, properly authenticated, is where the protections are. The data that's on the card without the authentication then ultimately would be worthless. That's a system that we need to move
and that
forward.
applies to the California driver's license as well.
No, absolutely.
We have to understand that whatever applies to the California driver's license also has to meet that standard. We currently don't apply those standards to the California driver's license, and we need to apply the standards equally across the board to all areas in which we request information from people to be used for either identification purposes or any other purpose, to make sure that it is the state of the art in protecting their privacy. I agree.
Other questions from committee members? Ms. Garcia.
Has the bill been moved?
Not yet.
Okay, I move the bill. I want to thank Mr. Wesso for bringing this bill forward. And happy to hear he's going to keep working with the opposition and making sure that our constituents are protected. But this bill ultimately is something that's good for our economy and good for the environment. And we are the biggest trade partner with Mexico, and those cars and those trucks sitting there idle are not just polluting our air, but it's money that we're wasting, it's gas that we're wasting along the way. So I want to thank you for your effort over the last 3 years to work on this item, and I look forward to, I hope, a compromise as this moves forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So that motion is do pass as amended to appropriations. That Mr. Gallagher is seconding it.
No, I had a question.
Oh, Mr. Wagner seconded it. Sorry, I thought I heard something. Mr. Gallagher.
Senator, it's my understanding that there is a passport card that's available through Secretary of State that provides a lot of the same benefits that we're talking about. Could you maybe speak to that and why that doesn't, provide the same utility as what you're proposing? Because my question is, kind of like, if we already have something available that could be used, why create a whole another new program?
It would be a minor change in terms of how DMV processes information, but you could accomplish one card through one transaction. And I think that has been, in terms of for people that carry a lot of documents around, or people that don't want to make a lot of expense when they're traveling, this is a much more efficient program. This saves you a lot of money. All you have to do, for a passport, you have to get a passport and then purchase a passport card. That exceeds over $100. Whereas if a passport is required for international travel, it is required to enter Mexico now. But this would, under the federal government's authorization, this would allow travelers just to use California's driver's license to go at the border. That's a lot of savings to people that are in business, to people that are traveling, to people that are living on a small budget. This could help them, through one identifier, one card, one document, one transaction, one application, accomplish the things that a passport would be useful for only for one thing. So this would be a much more efficient program, and it's something that we can accomplish working with DMV, just to have them slightly retool and to ask just for one more piece of information that establishes citizenship under the Homeland Security Act provided by the federal government. They have the authority to do that, but we have to. The legislature has to authorize that authority for the DMV to do that.
Seeing no other questions, can we take that as your close?
That's my close. Thank you. I respectfully ask for your support.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. Do pass as amended. 2 appropriations. Call the roll, please.
Stone.
Aye.
Stone, aye. Wagner. Wagner, aye. Alejo. Chow. Chow, aye. Chu. Chu, aye. Gallagher. Gallagher, aye. Garcia. Garcia, aye. Weber. Mainshine. Mainshine, aye. Thurman.